Hi, this is a recording to help you with some stretches. If you are a runner or a cyclist or sit at a desk all day, excuse me, you may well have short hamstrings, short hip flexors, and potentially short calves as well. If you're a cyclist, you never fully extend the leg, so through this hip area or through the knee, so things get a little bit tight through the legs. If you sit at a desk all day long, then your knees are always bent at 90 degrees, your hips are bent at 90 degrees, which means that the muscles on the back of the knee and front of the hip are going to be short generally, which can then pull on your pelvis and make your lower back a bit of a problem. And if you run, then you are going to be potentially using your hamstrings quite a lot, which shortens them. Depends what your running style's like, but that's another story. And calves can quite often get stiff with running if you don't articulate your ankles very much when you run. You can get stiff because you're just using your foot in that one area of its range. So the rest of it gets a little bit stiff because you're using it mostly here. So several stretches to work with that. All you need is a bit of carpet. You can use for the hamstring stretch a piece of TheraBand or physio band like this, but you can use a pair of tights or a long towel or a long piece of cloth of any description, a sweatshirt or a long sleeve t-shirt just rolled up and made into a long band. So let's start with the hamstrings. So lying on your back, pop the piece of band around the back part of your foot, so around your heel rather than your toe. And you're going to be lying on your back comfortably on the mat. I like to have my other leg bent just because I'm not focusing on this leg, I'm focusing on this one. Now what you want to do with this stretch is keep the back of your hips on the ground. We're not trying to lift your bottom up off the floor because that's going to take the stretch into your lower back here. We're aiming to get the stretch down the back of the thigh. So the band is round almost round your heel, between the arch of the foot and the heel. And you want to grab enough band so that you can extend the leg fully here so it's straight in this position. But I've now supporting that leg using the band. So the leg itself is all flobbity-dobbity here because it's relaxed. And we're going to use the band to bring the leg up to a point where you get stretch through the back of the hamstring here. Not agony, just a gentle, pleasant stretch. Now for me, because I'm doing this, having not done any warming up, and it's first thing in the morning, and because I am quite tight in the hamstrings, because I'm a runner, your leg may be further up than this. It might be vertical, it might be past vertical. It doesn't matter where it is, but it wants to be where it is, comfortable, but you can feel the stretch down the back of the thigh here. Comfortable stretch, and just hold it here. So again, the band is doing the work, not the leg, and the back of my hips is staying firmly on the floor. After about 12, 15, 18 seconds, the stretch should ease a little bit, should just relax off. So when it does, take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And as you exhale, use the band to draw the leg in a little bit further. It might come half an inch, it might come 2 inches. And again, we're just bringing it to that point of pleasant stretch. If you bring it too far, you may find everything starts to shake, or we're now at that point where you're thinking, oh, that's not very nice, rather than thinking, oh, that feels as though it's doing me some real good here. And the reason we've got the band on the heel rather than the toe is if you put it onto the toe and you're pulling the toe up here, you may well be getting more of a stretch through the calf than the hamstring, and what we want to focus on with this stretch is the hamstring. So we've got a 2-phase band stretch. First position here, wait for it to ease off. As it does, take a nice deep breath in, exhale, draw it in, and then hold it for a good 30 seconds in that pleasant stretched position. Now you can repeat that stretch by taking the leg slightly out from the vertical and slightly across the body here. As you pull in this direction, you will get a stretch further on the outside of the hamstring, but you may find if you're tight through piriformis that you get quite a nervy stretch through that leg, which may well take take the stretch right down towards your ankle as your sciatic nerve is getting a stretch and potentially just being having a bit of pressure put on it by being in this position. So don't panic too much if you get that nervy pain. It's still a very good thing to do. It's always good to stretch through those nerves as well as the fascia and the muscles through this area. So we're going to do it slightly across the body and slightly out from vertical here. 3 different places to do that 2-phase band stretch, and of course do it on both legs. So another really nice way to stretch your hamstrings and to stretch the back of your legs is to take a wide stance and just pop your hands on something. Now if you've got a bench or a low table, so this is a really good one to do outside, if you can grab the back of a garden bench or a park bench, take the feet nice and wide, grab the back of the bench and drop the chest, so we're going to get a nice stretch through the front of the chest here, and take your tailbone up to the sky, so you're almost hanging on the back of the bench and allowing, you can see that my legs have gone off the vertical here, so we're not just here stretching, we're actually hanging off back and pushing your bottom tailbone up to the sky here, really extending the legs fully, and you get a really nice stretch through there. Again, you're trying not to be in this position with the back, because then we're getting a stretch through lower back. We're trying to push the tailbone and get that long line from the crown of your head to your tailbone as you push the bottom back. And again, you may find that this eases after 15 seconds or so, and you can just drop a little bit lower through the chest here. So a couple of stretches for the hamstrings there, and now we need to work on hip flexors. So we've got a couple of ways we can do that. Now you may want to just protect your knees, it depends what your floor's like. If you're on a carpeted floor, that's one thing, or if you're outside on some grass. You need a wall or a seat behind you. You can do it either way. This way, you toe points straight up the wall behind you, and you take the other foot out in front. You can then use that front knee to lift yourself up to a point where you've got a lovely stretch through the front of the top of the thigh here. And depending on where you're tight, you're going to feel this slightly differently. So if you tighten your quads, you'll feel it a little bit lower down in that quad area. If you tighten through your hip flexors or your psoas, you are going to feel it further up into the front of the hip here. To make it a better stretch for hip flexor, if you reach up here and reach over to the side, so that you're reaching it away from the side that you're stretching, then you'll bring that further up into the hip, because the psoas connects into the top of the thigh here, but it also connects up into the thoracic spine. So by lifting up, reaching backwards and across, you're going to really stretch that psoas muscle up and through. So that's a really good stretch for the front of the hip. You can also do it if you have a chair. So in the same way, you put your foot on the front of your chair or your sofa, hands on that knee, and lift up here, again reaching back and over to the opposite side with that arm to really extend through the front of the hip there. And then just in terms of mobility on that ankle, if you kneel on one foot, if you kneel on both knees, and again you might just need double mat here, turn your toes under so that your toes are pushed here, and then if you lift your knees and drop them down a little bit closer to your toes, and you can push back with the hands here. So I'm actually pushing my bottom back towards my heels. My toes are turned under, so I'm getting a real stretch through the toes underneath the feet, and getting a stretch through the hamstrings here, which may be a little bit hamstrings, Achilles tendons here, to really stretch those toes out. So really pushing back. If you leave your knees too far away here, you're not going to get the same stretch. So just lifting them up and putting them down as close to your toes as you can, and then pushing your bottom backwards to really stretch the feet and the ankles, because if you've got limited mobility in your feet, you're limiting the spring in your running step, but also everything through the bottom here is then tightening up through the back chain of muscles, and if you're tight through that back chain of muscles, everything can lean up lead up to problems in your lower back because everything's then pulling on your pelvis. So 3 things to think about. Hamstring stretches, lying on the ground with the band in those 3 different positions, a 2-phase band stretch. Hip flexors by either putting the foot up against the wall or on the front of a chair, reaching up with the arm and reaching away from the side that you're stretching to really increase the stretch through that psoas, and then stretching through the bottom of the feet and the Achilles tendon area to really open up that back chain low down in the ankles, which can get tight if you are wearing heels to the office all day, or if you are running and not using the full range of movement through those feet, or if you're doing a lot of hill running as well, in which case you're up on your toes a lot, so everything's getting quite tight because it's working really hard. So give those stretches a go. Stretching needs to be done regularly to really see improvements, so I would say try and do those stretches every day if you can. If you are someone who's sitting at a desk all day, get up and do some of those stretches during the day if you can. Obviously, if you're working from home, it's easier than if you're in the office. Don't really want to be lying on the floor with a band. Okay, I hope that helps.